There are a total of 53 maps in Flood Escape 2, but it hasn't always had that many maps. Throughout the years, we've been getting more and more maps added to the game, going from Lost Woods to Dark-Sci Facility to Blue Moon all the way to Rustic Jungle. With this entire collection, there's definitely a wide selection of good maps, but we've also got some bad maps. So in this video, I will go over my top 5 favorite and least favorite maps in Flood Escape 2. This video was inspired by Phantom Strider's top 5 best and worst SpongeBob songs video. Go check his channel out, I'll link it and the video in the description. Before we get started, please note that this is my own opinion and I encourage you to share your own opinions in the comments. And also, I will be giving crap to the worst maps on the list, so if any of the map makers just so happen to be watching this, please don't feel bad as I am also giving constructive criticism. The roasting is just for the goofs and giggles. Without further ado, here are the top 5 best and worst Flood Escape 2 maps. Starting off with the 5th worst, we have Cave System. Cave System is a normal map made by Crazyblox and has a star rating of 2.3. The gameplay starts out fine in the first room, nothing too crazy, but it's not until we approach the second room where it contains a swimming section where you have to take a long swim and back just to get the second button. And the final section seems to have a difficulty boost showing only lava, a low jump, and a platform that collapses with no warning. And that's the end of the map. Overall, this map just seems very unbalanced with difficulty. It kind of feels like it goes from easy to normal just randomly, so I guess it kind of evens out to be a normal map. I don't have much to say about the detail and soundtrack as the detail is kind of bare considering how this is an older map, and the soundtrack just feels kind of bland. I don't really get much from listening to it. So far with Cave System, I haven't had much to complain about the map, but trust me, the lower we get on the list, the more I'm going to keep roasting these maps. Moving on to the 5th best, we have Construction Thrill. Construction Thrill is a normal map made by the Doge though and has a star rating of 2.7. I really enjoy this map mainly because of its theme of being a construction site and you end up jumping on all sorts of different stuff like scaffolding, crates, and long planks. The map also has really good detailing too, and I love how the hammers fall over, that's kind of funny. And the soundtrack is one of the best ones in the game. Not only does it sound good and is inspired by the Home Depot theme, but when you enter the indoor section towards the end, the soundtrack starts getting more intense so it builds up a lot of tension, and that's what makes the final room really fun to play. This is honestly just a really well put together map that's super fun to play, and I hope its legacy will go on until the end of Flood Escape 2. Next up is the 4th worst, which is Fallen Classic. Fallen Classic is a hard map made by Crazyblox, again, and has a star rating of 3.4. Some people may find it surprising how it's not at the bottom of the list, and my reason is that rather than this map being annoying, it's just very boring to play due to the lack of agilities. It has one unnecessarily long zipline at the beginning, and that's it. There's nothing else. It's just jump, jump, button, jump, 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 button, jump, 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 button, jump, jump, button, jump, jump, button, jump, jump. And there you go, you beat it. And it's not like agility wasn't a thing at the time. It definitely was. It's just that Crazyblox was too lazy with it. I will admit though, the revamp is actually not too bad. Yes, it's a Crazyblox map, meaning there's a lack of indication and the gameplay feels a bit iffy, but it's definitely a revamp from the classic. So overall, this map is just lame. Aside from the monochromatic effect, there's really nothing special about this map. Besides, this suffers a huge lack of detailing, and the soundtrack is just a reversed version of the Mar Dreams soundtrack. While it's smart, I will admit, I personally don't enjoy listening to this. Now, for the 4th best map, we have Zemblanity. Zemblanity is an easy map made by the Doge though once again and has a star rating of 1.3. The Doge though has only 2 maps added to Flood Escape 2, and both of them made it on this list. This just shows how good he is at making maps. Even though he may have stopped making maps, he will earn my respect for a long time. But what do I like about Zemblanity anyway? Well, the gameplay is easy enough to feel beginner friendly, the detailing is quite nice, the atmosphere is beautiful, and the soundtrack is just super calming to listen to. It overall just reminds me of Legend of Zelda, despite never playing the game in my life. Although, maybe I should try it someday. But yeah, Zemblanity is just a really nice map, and is by far my favorite easy map in the main game. I wish I had more to talk about this aside from the overall design to the map and the amazing soundtrack. And for the 3rd worst map, we have Abandoned Facility. Abandoned Facility is an insane map made by Crazyblox once again and has a star rating of 4.4. I'm definitely seeing a pattern when it comes to Crazyblox maps. They always have a lack of indication. Nah, you know what? Forget the word lack. There's no indication in any of his maps whatsoever. It's like he always just expects the players to know where to go. Anyway, Abandoned Facility, I really don't like this map. It gets okay in the first couple of rooms, but after you get the first button, you have to swim through some air vents. I already think swimming sections are pretty boring and lame, but when it comes to Abandoned Facility, reality, if you're not going for the third button, you have to wait a long time before the door opens up. Also, if there's a rescue escapee in the map, it may seem like a lot of people are going for that button, but in reality, they're actually going for the escapee and not the button at all. That is more of the player's fault more than anything else, but I feel like Crazyblox could have implemented the rescue better, like putting it in the tower section. Speaking of which, the tower section actually isn't too bad. I think it's a nice way to end off the map. But that doesn't change the fact that most of the gameplay is a giant swimming section, and it's just overall annoying to get through. And if I had to say anything about the soundtrack, it would be that it definitely fits for the map, but it's nothing special enough for me to enjoy listening to. For our third best map, we have Magmatic Mines. Magmatic Mines is an insane map made by Short Round Zach and has a star rating of 4.5. This map starts off with a tower section with a bunch of rails and carts like it's a mine shaft. The rest of the gameplay is just a giant cave section, but I'm more fascinated with the tower section because of the amount of detailing, fun gameplay, and creative use of the tracks and carts. Plus, the amount of shortcuts there are just makes the gameplay even more fun than it already is. And the soundtrack is just so catchy. It was originally made by Blastii, and then it was remastered by Manel Navola. And sorry Blastii, but the remaster sounds better. And if there was anything I had to criticize about the map, it would be the FPS unlocker glitch where the platforms would look all weird if you use an FPS unlocker. But ever since Crazyblox capped the FPS, thank you Crazyblox, that glitch isn't so much of an issue anymore. Also, I love to move my character in and out of the exit region so I can swim out of the map because it's pretty funny. This is definitely one of the more simpler maps to play, but regardless, the idea of it being a mineshaft is just really interesting to me. Moving on to the second worst map, we have Forgotten Tombs. Forgotten Tombs is a normal map made by, you guessed it, Crazyblox, and has a star rating of 2.4. Why can't Crazyblox just make a good map for once? Forgotten Tombs had originally started as a labyrinth event, but became permanent, and this map is just god-awful. First of all, you can easily hit your head on the ceiling while jumping on the rocks at the beginning, so if you jump from the wrong platform, you'll hit your head and die. And then when you approach the room with the second button, you jump on some planks leading to the button, and then you gotta jump down to this opening to continue the map. Like, what? It's so dark. How is a newcomer supposed to know where to go? And once again, there is no indication, so players may often get confused at that part. I suppose the tower-like section is alright, but good golly, this map is so bad it deserves to be left forgotten. The soundtrack was one of the 4 composed by BSlick in July of last year. Now, even though the soundtrack fits, it also sounds like it took 30 minutes to compose the whole soundtrack. It just sounds like BSlick barely put any effort to it. I'm not saying BSlick is a bad composer, but I'm just saying, when I think of FE2 soundtracks, this is not the energy I am looking for. This map may have seemed good in 2018, but oh boy did it age like milk. I could honestly care less if they took this out of the game. Next up is the second best map, which is Tomi Springs. Tomi Springs is a map made by CoolZach35 and has a star rating of 4.7. My goodness, this map is insane. Literally. So according to the wiki, this map is located in a ravine with some parts being placed in a cavern. It's similar to Poisonous Chasm, and I think that's a really cool theme. The amount of detail put into this makes it seem like it's abandoned and the water is contaminated or something. Okay, at this point, I'm just describing how the map looks. All I could say is that the detailing is incredible and this map is just fun to play. The soundtrack is definitely one of Lux's best ones, along with AVM B6. It's overall just a really fun map to play. Also, this is off topic, but Satomi definitely has one of the best skins in the game. I mean, just look at this crab cake art. It looks incredible. Despite this being such a great map, I feel like if it never got added, I wouldn't have liked it as much as I do now. But regardless, this map is just still phenomenal. And this is one of the higher rated Insane, so if a new player were to beat it for the first time, they would definitely find it accomplishing. I wish I had more to say about this masterpiece. Before we get to the number 1 spots, let's go over the honorable and dishonorable mentions. For our honorable mentions, we have Buried Oasis. Some may complain about the sight reading being quite difficult for an easy map, which I do stand by, but the map looks beautiful with a calming soundtrack, and if you have the muscle memory for this map, it can be quite a journey to play. Northern Mill, in my opinion, is the better alternative version of Northern Workshop. It's more detailed, gameplay feels more consistent, and the soundtrack sounds pretty nice. Sunken Citadel. I have not mentioned a single hard map on the list yet, but my favorite would definitely be Sunken Citadel because it has a unique theme, cool details, amazing soundtrack, and it's not that old of a map. Literally any crazy map. Now you may be thinking that I'm giving crazy bias, and well, you're not wrong. But think of it this way, we have maps like Lost Woods, Flood Island, and Infiltration that are all old maps and aren't very detailed. Then we have maps like AVM and Sandswept Ruins that are more modern, meaning that they are more detailed. So it's not the fact that they are crazy maps, meaning they're automatically fun to enjoy, but it's more of just that they have more detailing than any other maps. Now for our dishonorable mentions, we have Castle Tides. It's very linear, which is understandable for an easy map. The pacing may seem slow when you're playing multiplayer, but if you have one bad screw up in the first room while playing solo, you're done. GG's. And the Z fighting may be quite annoying for some people. I will admit, the soundtrack sounds pretty nice. Marred Dreams. The only critique I have about this map is the fact that it starts with water for whatever reason, and the pacing is definitely too fast for an easy map. Otherwise, it's a nice theme with a good soundtrack, but it's honestly not enough to put it higher on the list. Dark-Sci Forest. Some may find this pretty controversial. I know it's a special map considering that it's part of the Dark-Sci trilogy along with Facility and No Light, but the issue I have with this map is the swimming section where you have to constantly go in and out of the acid to press the buttons. And I cannot tell you how many times I've died at that part because I was being stupid. It seems like a decent map, but that section can frustrate me sometimes. Toxic Woods. Overall, just a disappointment. If this was Poisonous Forest V4, it would be a lot higher on the list, but it's just a rebranded version just to be added to the game, and the soundtrack is a trap remix for whatever reason, and overall, this map just disappoints me. Now, for the worst map in Flood Escape 2, we have Crystal Caverns. Boy, am I going to enjoy this. Crystal Caverns is a hard map made by not Crazyblox this time, but Flood Escaper 1 and has a star rating of 3.3. This map is just so... it sucks. I hate it! The platforms in the first room are so close together that you often find yourself skipping almost every single one. This is just Mysterium, but 10 times worse. Oh, but it gets better. After you press the third button, you have to grab an air bubble and swim through this entire swimming section, press 5 more buttons, and then you beat the map. But the process is so boring that it's kind of annoying. And if you happen to make one mistake while playing solo, you'll either survive with 2 oxygen left, or it's GG from there. The soundtrack doesn't sound too bad, it definitely fits for the map, but when you enter the swimming section, the soundtrack becomes muffled so you can't hear it very well. This is by far the worst map in Flood Escape 2. If there were to be any map I would want removed, it would be Crystal Caverns. Finally, for the best map in Flood Escape 2, we have Snowy Stronghold. Snowy Stronghold is a crazy map made by Smokey the Fox and has a star rating of 5.3. I know, crazy map as the top favorite sounds like crazy bias, but hear me out on this, alright? Even though this map may not be Smokey's best work considering how there's Mirage Saloon, this is still a phenomenal map. It has crazy detailing, a banger soundtrack, and I just love the gameplay. First tower, second tower, final section, and the way it ends off too, man, I love this map. Remember when this was a highlight and then became permanent? Ah, the good old days. One thing I also want to mention is the picture variants in the second tower. That's definitely a really nice touch. Overall, the map has fun gameplay, including 2 tricky tower sections, and has really nice decorations, especially the pictures. And the soundtrack, I could honestly listen to that for hours. By far, my favorite Flood Escape 2 map. So that was the top 5 best and worst maps ever to be added to Flood Escape 2. Consider sharing your thoughts in the comments, and if you like my content, then consider subscribing for more videos. That's it for the video, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya!
Scorching magma, which is only used on Agnes peaks.